Hi, geniuses. Oh my God. I have missed this. I have missed you guys. And it feels like 2 weeks to you because the last episode I posted was 2 weeks ago, but that episode was pre-recorded. So I actually haven't sat down and recorded anything for like a month. And if the reason behind that is purely like honestly mental health, I have been so busy and I've been doing things that I've been running at 1,000,000 miles per hour, but my brain was crumbling. The amount of negative self-talk, like up here was a dark, dark place, a haunted house. And so I was like, I physically just cannot bring myself to come with the correct energy in front of the camera and just to not be, guys, life sucks. You know, I didn't want to be very cynical and I didn't want to be very negative and pessimistic. So I took 2 weeks off recording and now I'm back with the book club episode that I had promised. I knew I was going to do Macbeth and I said I was going to do an entire episode of Macbeth, but that has to be paused because when I do the Macbeth episode, my friend Claire has to be on. Okay, that was like the promise I made to her. So whenever she's ready, whenever we can like grab some time because she lives in the US to like sit down and actively talk about Macbeth in detail. And she is an absolute genius. She studied this. This was part of her course at Cambridge. So she needs to be on that episode. She has to be the first book club episode guest. So, but anyway, for those of you guys who are new and are joining us geniuses for the first time in this book club, essentially every month or so, even though it's been like 2 months since, sorry. Every month we gather here on my podcast and we just talk about books for an entire episode. These episodes have a very specific structure. So the first part is me talking through all of the books that I've currently been reading, why I've been loving it, why I've been hating it, you know, giving you guys some book recommendations. Part 2 is the larger discussion topic, which is the title of the video. So for example, today it is love triangles. That is the larger discussion topic. And then part 3 of the book club episode is the book clinic. I will be taking on the role as Dr. Jesi and I will be sitting here and reading advice. So people send in some of the problems they're going through, some of the things that they want help with, some of the types of books that they kind of want recommended to them. And I go through them, I read, and I give a recommendation and some life advice based off of the book recommendation that you require. So it's pretty straightforward. But before we continue, guys, I feel such an overwhelming sense of love and devotion to the book club episodes. And the reason is I have gotten quite a few DMs and messages from people actually telling me that I have read the recommendations from book club and I have thoroughly been enjoying them. One of these people being one of my very, very best friends, Janai, or J9 as we like to call her. And Janai is the type of friend, she's the best type of friend. She is the friend that if you mention something to her or you recommend something to her, she is going to go listen to it, consume it, read it, watch it. And this is such a rare type of person because usually people are like, okay, I'll add it to my list. I'm one of those people who be like, okay, maybe I'll check it out soon. And then I come back like a year or 2 years later. I'll be like, oh my God, have you guys seen the show? And you're like, yeah, like I told you to watch it 2 years ago, you psycho. Janai is not like that. I will go to Janai and be like, oh my God, like, you know, Bob's Burgers is really, really cool. I think it's so funny. It's like one of my favorite like adult animation shows. And she'll be like, cool. She'll come back. She said, yeah, I've watched the 5 seasons and it's amazing. It's great. And these are all my opinions on the characters like 3 weeks later. I'm like, Janai, how do you have the time? I'm not the greatest type of friend. Janai is also the same type of person that if you're on one of those massive group chats, like, you know, with like 30 people in like your year group and stuff, like throwback to school days, and you send a message and nobody replies or engages with you, Janai will engage with you. She will literally type, ha 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 ha, or oh my God, so funny, or oh my God, I've never thought about that. Like, she is the best type of friend. And so after listening to the episode, she went away and actually read the Natural series and she read Akatar. But we went away and she came back and she was like, Jesi, like, that, phenomenal. She loved the Natural series and then she went ahead and read Akatar and she was like, I'm obsessed and I don't even know why. And so this is for me to just say that my book recommendations are actually good. Like, I'm not chatting. And thank you to all of those who actually go out and read the book recommendations and have feedback. And honestly, like, some people have been like, yeah, I tried Akatar, it wasn't for me, and that's okay. Anyway, geniuses, welcome back to this episode, book club edition.
Female genius.
Yeah, so I have been a little bit in my reading bag recently. Like, this summer I've been quite busy. I was on an internship, so I haven't had actually a lot of time to sit down and read, but this past month in September, I was inhaling, I think I read 5 books in this month of September. And one of them being the second book in the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown called Golden Sun. And when I tell you that I have never read a book series and immediately thought that this deserves like a Dune level adaptation, it is absolutely amazing and phenomenal, and each character is so complex. So in the Red Rising series, it's set in almost this dystopian, like intergalactic world where there is a caste system based off of color. And I can't remember the exact risings, but rankings, but red is at the very, very bottom and gold is at the very, very top. And it's this extremely hierarchical society where the types of jobs you have, how you are treated, like your positions, everything is determined by your caste color. And Darrow, our main character, is a red. And he's treated terribly and he's treated poorly, but he's somewhat satisfied with his life because he doesn't know anything beyond it. And he then realizes that the whole caste system has been a lie and the way in which they do it is very unjust and unfair. So he goes through infiltrating the golds and becoming part of the golds to take them down from the inside. And when I tell you the amount of societal commentary, the battle scenes, the fort, the world building in this book is utterly incredible. And I do not take that lightly. I read a lot of books and I will happily sit here and tell you what books don't have great world building, what books have great characterization, but maybe not good world building. Like, I'm very aware and objective when it comes to my book recommendations. But I read the first page of this book and it pierced me straight through the heart. It's so, so amazing. One thing that I really like is the commentary on power, what it means to obtain power and how power could corrupt an individual, and the price of freedom and how far are you willing to go to fight for a certain level of freedom, and just who is really bad and who is really good. And can we judge people who inherently are born with power and they don't see what their influence and their privilege? And there's just so much commentary and so much level of detail in this book that I could do a whole episode, and I probably will. If I was ever to do an English literature degree, I feel like I would write my dissertation on Red Rising because it's so phenomenal. The second book was just as incredible as the first. And I always feel like when it's a dystopian, like YA fantasy type book, and I read the first book and I enjoyed the first book so much, I'm always scared for the second book because I'm like, oh, are you guys going to get me? Am I gonna like this book? You know, because usually the second book, either the first book was mediocre and then the second book is amazing and the third book dips, or like the first book is so amazing and the second one's like a bit, we're trying to fill in the gaps that wasn't great in the first book and then the third book is really good. But this book was like bang, bang, bang. You know, like the horse meme where the horse is just a stallion all the way through. That's what it felt like reading those two books. It's absolutely amazing. So if you're very much into like a dystopian, if you like The Hunger Games, if you like Dune, if you like those kind of movies or books, I think Red Rising is a really good book for you. The characters aren't beloved. I'm not going to sit here and tell you are going to love and fall in love with the characters. And if you are the type of person who reads a book because you want to like the characters and like the character's journey, maybe this isn't the book for you because the characters make very, very questionable decisions. And you don't always agree with what the main character or our main character, Darrow, is doing. But those types of questions, I think, are so powerful when you're reading a book like Red Rising because it allows you to analyze and deconstruct your own moral compass. Why do you feel this way towards this person's actions? What does that say about the way you see and view power within your own society, within your own life, within your own sphere of influence? Maybe this is just a silly little space intergalactic adventure. I feel like I'm going too deep, but the action scenes are really, really amazing. The second book, The Golden Sun, was even better. And I haven't read the third book yet, so imagine if I'm saying all of this now and the third book is just like, oh. But my friend Moomin actually is on the third book, and I didn't realize he was reading the book at the same time as me, but then I brought it up in conversation and he was like, this is so good, you read it too? And we're like, this off that feeling when somebody's reading the same book as you and you just get excited about it together. But he is on the third book and he was like, yeah, the third book goes crazy, like it's so good. So I'm so excited to read it. Anyway, geniuses, let's get on to the main topic of discussion. My personal favorite trope of all time, since we're on the topic of romance, let us talk about the love triangle.
Female genius.
Okay, the Wikipedia definition of a love triangle is a scenario or circumstance usually depicted as a rivalry in which two people are pursuing or involved in a romantic relationship with one person. This is not to be confused with a ménage à trois, which is a three-way relationship where each of the parties are actively involved with each other. And I love this is my favorite trope. I can't articulate to you how much I love this trope. Every single time I see that a show is going to have a love triangle, I squeal inside. I genuinely do not know why I love this trope so much. Maybe this is a testament to my commitment issues. Maybe this is a testament to the fact that I just want to be loved by the most amount of people possible. I don't know what it is. I was very curious, actually, as I usually am, trying to explore like the neuroscientific. Is neuroscientific a word? The neurological basis of why humans are drawn to love triangles. There isn't a lot of data because maybe this is just a me issue. Maybe this is just because I was talking about this to one of my friends the other day and she was like, no, I despise love triangles. I hate it. So maybe this is truly me, but I saw on Wikipedia and then it led me down like to read some of this paper, which is kind of like how Freud's Oedipus complex plays into or tries to explain the different adult dynamics and relationships in love. And there was a section of it that tried to use the Oedipus complex to try and explain why love triangles exist. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the Oedipus complex, if you haven't heard about it, it's so commonly talked about within popular media. And I feel like I do really need to go and sit down and really dive deep in it because I really do shit on it. Like I really do make fun of it. And I'm like, yeah, gross, Oedipus complex, ill. Because it sounds so, like, honestly, reading into it for like this podcast episode, I was like, gross, ill, disgusting. But the Oedipus complex basically refers to like a son's sexual desire towards his mother and subsequent hostility towards his father, which is first formed during the phallic stage. So between the ages of 3 to 6, it's basically talking about how children or adults, basically, so during your development, how you become sexually aware and cognizant and how these patterns and desires and things form. It's weird. I hate talking about it. I really hate talking about it. But anyway, that's Freudian theory. And some people theorize like this is kind of where maybe the love triangle aspects kind of kick in because it's like derived from when, as a child, your Oedipus development or your Oedipus complex, which apparently, according to Freud, is very necessary for healthy sexual development during your phallic stage, is repressed. So you develop or an inability to make a choice between two people or whatever reason. I don't know. I usually can read into a lot of stuff, but this Freud grosses me out. But there are so many iconic love triangles, like, you know, Ed and Jacob and Bella, Twilight. My favorite, okay, I shouldn't say my favorite love triangle because this is actually a real person's life. Diana, Charles, and Camilla. What? Oh my God. I was obsessed with it because I don't know if this is an ethnic parent thing, but like my auntie and like my parents were low-key always obsessed with Diana. And I was born after Diana died, so I never got to experience the People's Princess. But just the way people would talk about, oh, Diana, she gone to, like, people, like, the ethnic parents love off Diana, like, so I was very obsessed with them kind of growing up and, you know, my royal family phase. And then The Crown came out, and then that episode is like, Camilla is who I want. That is where my loyalties lie. It's part of my daily reference list. Like, I reference it all the time. So I was so obsessed with that love triangle. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Charles, how could you? Okay. There are like so many different times, and obviously I think it's just such a popular trope. I can name like 25, but in my opinion, it's never, ever done well. Okay. It's really, really hard to do well, like a love triangle, because a lot of the time you want answers too obvious. I think one of my favorite ones, and maybe a Shakespeare play, I feel like I always reference Shakespeare plays because I am actually a little bit of a Shakespeare fangirl. And I kind of used to feel very embarrassed because it felt like, oh, you're not nuanced, you don't know any other playwrights and blah, 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 blah. Fine, yeah, cool. But I really do like Shakespeare. And a very good example of a love triangle in a Shakespeare play, which is not Romeo and Juliet, because the love triangle between Paris and Romeo and Juliet to me isn't a real love triangle. Okay, Paris, she doesn't like you, go home, like, you're desperate. I also think Romeo is a creep. Honestly, Juliet should just not have been involved with men at all. But anyway, I think Twelfth Night is one of Shakespeare's comedies, and I actually musically directed like an edition of Twelfth Night. So I actually really know the play really well because I've watched it, a rendition of it many times. But if you haven't heard of Twelfth Night, I'm going to give you like a very quick overview summary of the love triangle in Twelfth Night. And if you've ever watched She's the Man with Amanda Bynes and Channing Tatum, that is basically 12th Night. So we have our main character, Viola, and she has a twin brother called Sebastian. And basically, they're on their way to somewhere. I don't remember where they were going, but then they get shipwrecked. And then Viola lands herself in this land and she thinks her brother has drowned. And she's like, oh my God, my brother is dead. How am I ever going to survive? How am I ever going to find myself? Blah, 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 blah. So she pretends to be a man in effort to protect herself because she's a woman in this time. So obviously she's not safe. So she pretends to be a man named Cesario and she gets a job as a servant in the Duke of Orsino. Is it Duke of Orsino or Duke Orsino? We're just going to call him the Duke for the sake of the story. So she gets a job as a servant for the Duke, right? The Duke is obsessed with this girl called Olivia. Olivia is a baddie. She is the Madison Beer. She is the Laurie Harvey of our time. Every single character seems to be obsessed. Every single character with a penis is obsessed with Olivia, is the crux of the story. But Olivia has been mourning her dead brother. So every single the time the Duke tries to move to her, it's just landing on deaf ears. Olivia is not hearing any of it because she's like, yeah, my brother just died. I'm not in the mood to be wooed by you right now. And the Duke is like, oh my God, but you're the love of my life. And Olivia's like, no, girls. And then the Duke is like, Cesario, like, you know, you have a way with words. You have a way with women. I don't know how you have a way with women. Remember, Cesario is actually a woman. He's Viola, right? And so Cesario sends love letters on behalf of the Duke. So Cesario is writing them, but he is sending them saying like, oh, the Duke is sending this to you, to Olivia, right? Unfortunately, through the process of doing this action for the Duke, Olivia falls desperately in love with Cesario. She says, wow, mourning over, my brother doesn't matter anymore. You, Cesario, are a little piece of me. She loves him. She thinks he's so hot. To make matters even more confusing, Cesario, aka Viola, remember because she's dressing up as a man, is starting to fall in love with the Duke. Pretending to be his servant and spending loads of time with him, she's like, oh my God, I think I like the Duke. The Duke is having consistent bisexual panic because he's like, wait, I'm actually feeling a type of way towards Cesario. Because remember, in the Duke's head, Cesario is a man. So he is like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? I'm going nuts. I'm going crazy. Like, whoa, Cesario, like, what? But he's still convinced, like, you know what? It's fine. I'm not gay at all. I definitely like Olivia. I don't feel a type of way towards my male servant. Wink, wink. Anyway, after all of this, right, just to summarize, before I go into, like, how the love triangle concludes, Viola likes the Duke, right? The Duke likes Olivia, but is low-key catching feelings for Cesario, which is Viola dressed up as a man, right? And Olivia likes Cesario, who is actually Viola. Anyway, guess who comes back into the story? Sebastian, Viola's dead brother, who isn't actually really dead, and his new friend Antonio wash up on this in this land, palace, island place thing, right? He thinks his sister is dead, so he's kind of heartbroken as well, and he bumps into Olivia, and Olivia's like, oh my God, Cesario, you're so fine. And Olivia goes, we should get married. I think you're the love of my life. I really want to get married. Sebastian, no thoughts. He must have looked his head. Zero self-awareness, zero self-consciousness. He is like, cool, you're hot. Like, why not? Because remember, every person in this play with a penis is obsessed with Olivia. And so Olivia thinks she's marrying Cesario, who is actually Sebastian. And then there's a whole scene and like everybody's so confused because the Duke is like, Cesario, how dare you do this to me? I thought you were my guy. And Cesario, aka Viola, is like really confused, being like, I don't like Olivia. Olivia's even more confused because she's like, wait, there's two of you? Cesario is revealed to be Viola. Viola finds out her twin brother isn't actually dead. The Duke finds out like, oh, I'm not actually gay. I can like you now, Viola. And Sebastian and Olivia, she's like, you look like the guy I like. That's good enough for me. Sebastian's like, Olivia, hot. That's good enough for me as well. And the love triangle is confused. But that is a good love triangle because it took me time for me to explain it, right? I think, you know, there's an art, there's a detail to it. Everybody is confused. You don't really know where somebody's going to end up. I honestly think Shakespeare did his big one with that one. That was a very, very good love triangle. But in my opinion, there is a certain thing or trait that makes a love triangle good, that makes a love triangle iconic. First things first, I need to believe for anyone that can end up with anyone, I need to believe that the story can go either way. Like, I just need to not know what the ending is. A book that does this really well is the Legendborn series. There's only 2 books out now. Beyond the love triangle, the Legendborn series is Absolutely crazy phenomenal. It's so good. So I would highly recommend it. It's like a young adult fantasy that based off of Arthur's Round Nights and Tables, and we have a black main girl character. There is a love triangle, but it's not the emphasis of the story, but it is in the story, and I'm just referencing it because we are talking about love triangles, but I genuinely think it's such a phenomenal book, and if you are interested and you really like YA fantasy, I recommend you check it out. But it is so good because we're on the second book now, and I cannot tell you who she's going to end up with. I cannot fundamentally tell you. I'm so confused. I don't know who I want her to end up with. And that is what makes a good love triangle. It needs to be a discussion point. It needs to be an argument. It needs to be, I am on the phone sweating to my friends for 2 hours where everybody is in the court case, in the courtroom. They are lawyers defending the person they want the love triangle to be successful with. That is a good love triangle. We just need to not know where it goes. Because the conclusion is, oh, she's just going to end up with Edward anyway. It can't be like that. It can't. In the love triangle, right, the two parties that are vying for the attention of a person need to be linked. They need to be siblings. They need to be best friends. They need to be exes. They can't just be random strangers that both like the same girl, because that's a boring love triangle because you don't care about the other person's feelings. There's a layer of complexity that has been added into a love triangle when the two parties that like the one person are connected and intertwined in one way, because it becomes more complicated. It becomes more, right, like how much do you like her? Are you willing to give her up for this other person? It just adds, like the Vampire Diaries, it just adds this layer of dynamic where I'm kind of flirting with you and I'm moving to you and you've kissed me, but you're dating my brother. You know? Unhealthy, toxic. That's what I love. A love triangle is not a healthy situation. I don't know why we want a healthy way to approach it, okay? Under no exception should the ending of a love triangle involve one of the characters doing something that is so uncharacteristically not them, just to provide a reasoning for the main person to pick the other person. I hate it when the girl is dating one of them and she's still a little bit torn. There's still like a flirty situation. And then the guy that she's with or the girl that he's with or the person that they're with cheats. And then she's like, I can't be with someone who can't be loyal to me. And that is the whole justification. Ew, get that away from me. That is lazy writing, okay? Because this doesn't make sense to any of the characters' arcs and the way they act. Do not throw it in to just end the love triangle. I hate it. And I personally think a love triangle's conclusion is very, very important. And I honestly think there's only 3 ways to go about it. Number one, there's going to be a group of people on the internet who are going to be unhappy. She is just going to have to make a decision, and the other half of the decision, who isn't chosen for, is going to be unhappy. Okay? It's frank. It's the real world. And maybe you can throw in a hint of, oh, that person's going to end up with someone else in the series, blah, 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 blah. For whatever reason, somebody is going to end up alone and is going to end up upset. I need to be like, I need to feel it. Or one of them dies. Macabre, morbid, one of them just got to go, and then they get together. AOT, it happens all the time. Or another complete, this is my personal opinion, they just become a couple. They find a way to make it work. They find a way, like, why don't we just all date each other?
Female genius.
Welcome to the book clinic. We are open for business. Like Dr. Jesi, solve all of your life's problems. Okay, so we only have one for this week, but do remember that if you want to be featured on the book clinic, I won't say your name, I shouldn't say featured, but if you have any questions or you want some advice or you want a specific type of book recommendation, maybe you read a book and you're trying to itch and find the next one and the internet is not helping you, Jesi is better than the internet. Jesi is better than ChatGPT. She will help you. So follow me on Instagram, and the link in my bio will contain the book advice link form, and you just fill it in. It's super quick and easy. And then the next book club episode, we can crack it out and talk about it. And I'd love to help you out. Anyway, so let me read it. I have a serious addiction. It is embarrassing to admit, but I spend almost 15 hours a day on my phone, with majority of my time being drained by social media apps, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, the lot. I want to unplug and heal my attention span, but I feel so bored without my phone, and I'm struggling to focus and build a habit of reading. Can you give me some tips on how to enjoy reading, unplug, and also some book recommendations to kickstart my journey? Amazing. So I actually made a YouTube video back when I was in my YouTube era, at the beginning of this year, actually, so it was in January, about how to become a reader this year, how to build up a book habit, because it is genuinely hard. I feel like, especially because if you're not in an environment since school, or even while you were at school, you just did not read for pleasure or leisure, and you've always seen reading as almost like the scholarly activity, it's going to be extremely hard for you to engage in that way. especially with the fact of reading is such a slow release, like it is a delayed gratification activity, because you have to actively read the words and like understand the book that you're reading for you to get that boost of, oh my god, the person did it, or oh my god, the satisfaction that you get from watching like a 30-40 second TikTok is going to take much longer when you're reading a book. And I think that is why reading a book is so fundamentally important in a time where our attention span and the attention economy is just vying and breaking down our attention in ways that is undescribable, genuinely. And so I do think reading has become extremely even more important, more than just the joy and the pleasure of reading and learning something new or transporting to a new world and the healing nature of that. It's become very important to train your brain to like lock in and pay attention and train your brain in delayed gratification. Reading a book is the easiest and most accessible form and way to do so. It's very, very hard to decide I am going to completely throw out my phone and live on the middle of an island for the rest of my life, but that's not possible. But there are ways to train your brain to become more appreciative of forms of delayed gratification, which in turn can have a knock-on effect of you using social media apps less and improving your attention span over time. Things like sitting down and watching an entire movie for 1 hour, 30 minutes, 2 hours without touching your phone, without hitting pause unless you need to pee, and being locked in and concentrating the whole time is a skill that lots of people lack now. Like whenever I'm like to my friends, like, oh my God, let's go to the cinema. And one of my friends was like, I cannot sit and concentrate in a cinema. I cannot actively sit and listen to a movie if there's not a little Subway Surfers person at the bottom doing that because of my attention span. So I generally hear you out, and I generally do think books and reading is a very, very good way to train that, but it is a very hard habit to get into if you're not used to it. I think my advice for this is to pick a book that mirrors the type of content you like consuming. So whether you like watching shows or certain types of talks on TikTok or certain things or topics really interest you, pick a book that mirrors that. For example, I love watching anime, shonen anime, fairy tale, Naruto, One Piece, very adventure-focused, adventure-driven themed anime. So for me, when I was around 13, 14, and I wanted to get really into reading and back into reading again, I was searching for books that mirrored and felt like the things I really enjoyed watching, which was more YA fantasy and dystopian and adventure novels. And so I discovered Mary Lou, who was one of my favorite authors when I was a teenager, and I read her Young Elite series, and I absolutely fell in love. And it really kickstarted that reading habit for me because the chapters were quite short, so they were easy and digestible to read. They mirrored content that I was actually really interested in. If I had gone and picked up a book about rocks, the hate I give to rocks, a book about rocks, and they had 50-page chapters, I promise you I would not be the reader I am today because it's hard to access. I do not give a shit about rocks. I do not care about rocks. And also the chapters are long and my attention span was terrible. So it was just, I was setting myself up for failure. So you want to make the act of reading as easy as possible by picking a book with content that you actually enjoy. As you get into reading as a habit, then you can start branching out and diversifying your reading taste and maybe reading a non-fiction if you prefer fiction, reading fiction if you prefer non-fiction, and trying out different types of books and exploring like that when you get into the habit of reading. But when you are trying to get into the habit of reading, please just do not pick a book that looks cool or, makes you feel very, very intelligent. Pick a book that you actually stick with. If it's Harry Potter, read the flipping Harry Potter. If it's Diary of the Wimpy Kid that's going to get you into this reading habit, read the Diary of the Wimpy Kid. Don't let anybody judge you because you are trying to build a habit that is going to stay with you and benefit you in so many ways for the rest of your life, right? So that's it. Pick a book under 500 pages with short chapters because that kind of mirrors almost like this TikTok gratification. Like the end, finishing a chapter is like this boost of dopamine in your brain that you have accomplished something. So you want to basically give yourself that kind of similar boost, which encourages you to keep reading and reading and reading and reading. I would also recommend following book creators. So there's loads on TikTok, there's loads of YouTubes, or just even on Instagram, or finding a little local book club or an online or virtual book club, or even I've given you so many book recommendations today, maybe picking one of them, because I will actively be in my DMs, my comment sections. Should I create like a little community? Oh, no, a female genius book club community. I'd love that. Okay, leave it with me. Join a book community and read books like that because discussing books with people as well makes the act of reading books a lot more interesting. You're engaged, you're locked in, you're tapped in. It's so much more fun when you know you can discuss the topics of a book with someone else. I think for me, one of my greatest joys in reading or watching anime or watching a movie is to then go on Twitter, to go online and to just talk with people about it, talk with people and hear their opinions, whether it's opposing to mine or similar to mine, and just get really, really excited about it. It just makes it even better. Some of my bestest friends or really, really good friends I have made just on the basis of the shared interest of reading. And we will go into Waterstones and speak for like 3 hours about the books we're reading, everything we're excited about, what we liked about the books, what we don't like about the books that we would recommend for the other person to read. That is a powerful, powerful thing to motivate you to read, knowing that somebody is going to be there to talk you through it or with you on the other side. Those are some of my tips in doing reading goals and habits. Set yourself a tracker and time at every single day. Like literally put it in your calendar if you need to. Set yourself a 15-minute timer, put your phone across the other side of the room and be like, I'm going to sit here for 15 minutes and I'm going to read this, or I'm going to read 10 pages. And if you do that every single day with a book that has content that you genuinely like, I promise you in like 2 weeks, by the time you hit the middle and like the peak of the book, you'll be reading for longer than 15 minutes. You will be reading for longer than 10 pages because you're genuinely interested in what is going on in the book and you want to get to the conclusion, you want to get to the end, you want to find out what happens. It does take time and it does take effort, and that's not going to be the cure-all. Like your time on your phone isn't going to go down by like 14 hours. You're only going to spend 1 hour on your phone, but it will help in some way and you will see a reflection and improvement. If you're very intrigued about the whole attention economy and the whole idea of social media taking over our lives, I would recommend the book Stolen Focus by Johan Hari. I'm not a big fan of nonfiction books, I'm not gonna lie. They aren't my bag. I would rather watch a documentary, listen to a podcast, or read a research paper than sit down and read like a book on a specific topic. So there are very few nonfiction books that I will recommend because I'm so critical about them. I'd rather be entertained. But Johan Hari's Stolen Focus made me so aware of the issues within our attention economy and our attention span, and how those kind of issues are going to come into play on a societal level, on a personal level, on a world level, how that's going to affect and have a ripple effect on generations. It talks about the ADHD epidemic in America and just why it's so hard for us to lock in and have our attention back. And I think knowing why your attention has been taken away from you, why you're so obsessed and just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling on these apps, and it also gives solutions and mechanisms and methods as to how to help yourself detach, I think could actively help you. Understanding how a system works. It's kind of like, the whole idea of, if you smoke, I don't smoke, or if you drink, for example, I used to be a massive drinker, partially because that was the way I coped with my mental health issues, but also because like I was aware alcohol was like bad for you, but I also like the feeling. I just wasn't really aware of how damaging alcohol was to my brain and to my body. And then I remember one day I sat down and I read a research paper about it as a result of doing a neuroscience module in my second year about like memory and attention. And when I learned like how the crazy ripple effects and the damage that alcohol does to like your brain and your body, my alcohol consumption decreased so immediately. I still drink from time to time, but I would not drink the way I used to drink before, just from that knowledge of understanding how much it damages my body. And it's kind of like, if you know the type of effect that smoking has on your lungs, you're going to be more inclined to find ways that you can quit. So if you understand how your attention being stolen from you and how this messes with your reward system in your brain and your dopaminergic neurons and all this stuff, right? All of this very technical stuff that is easy to digest and understand, you are probably going to be more inclined to learn and put in effort to develop skills and habits that allow you to gain your attention back. But anyway, guys, I love you. I hope this really helps you. And as always, the book clinic will be back next month and I'll be back next week for another episode. I actually don't know what next week's episode is going to be about because I'm torn between two topics. I'm extremely torn. I want to do like another mini series because I love doing the deep dive into genius because it allowed me to explore a topic and not feel like I have to get it all in one take. I kind of want to do one on limerence. I mentioned it in one of my footnotes episodes when I was reading, like giving crush advice to people on Reddit. And I want to kind of explore different aspects of love. So explore the neuroscience between your parental relationships and how it shows up in your forms of love, friendship as a form of love, limerence, crushes, all of those kind of things. I kind of want to do like a mini series and a knock-on effect of everything in that zone. But then also I have been rewatching Avatar: The Last Airbender like very intentionally, like tracking the lessons, the social commentaries, the things that I have learned from that. And I kind of want to do a series about that, Avatar The Last Airbender, and also all of the shows. I wanted to do like an anime one, so I wanted to do one on Blue Lock, I wanted to do on Haikyuu, on One Piece arcs as well, just like the lessons I've learned from that. So I could do them concurrently, like at the same time, and maybe one can be a footnote and one can be a main episode. But I feel like both of them deserve main episode slots. Can't make a decision. So if you're listening to this and you have a preference, drop me a DM. Let me know what your preference is. I will be back for a very long time. You guys will be sick of me. Anyway, geniuses, I love you so much, and I will see you guys next week on Female Genius.